Outdoor performance has some specifics that are awkward at best to talk about unless we can get down to some of the details. What we're talking about in all music is sound. How do you produce sound? How does that sound affect the listener? And how is that different, for example, from taking a group that would play inside here, and why is it different when you go outside? What makes it different? Probably the simplistic approach would be the best. And the biggest difference that we have between an outdoor and indoor performance is the shape of the container. We have a container here that contains all the sounds. Outdoors we don't have a container. And so there are the differences that those two things make are specifically what you have to be alert to and aware of as an instructor, whether it is in an instructor capacity of designing or an instructor capacity of taking that design and making it work for you. So using those thoughts as an idea and trying to relate that to sound production, there are three areas that I think are probably the most important things that you need to deal with. The first area is make sure that you have well-structured arrangements. If they're not well-structured, no matter what you try to do as a performer, you will have some inadequacies, and those inadequacies will end up being a frustration to you as a instructor and a frustration to the performers, because they won't be able to deal with the problems at hand. So well-structured arrangements are extremely important. Another area of writing that's just as important because of what we do is called proper visual staging. If you don't stage those sounds that you have properly, even the best arrangements will come out very awkward, and in many instances will not come out. Things that sounded real good on tape all of a sudden take on a new attitude. One like, I wished I was through with this season. And we've all been in that position before. The third, and probably as equally important, is adequate preparation. The best charts, both visually and auditorily, will not produce the results unless those who are trying to perform it can produce the results physically. So you can have a gangbuster chart, and if the tuning of the band is such that it causes your eardrums to split or to bleed and your eyeballs pop out, you probably are not going to produce the kind of sound that you thought it was going to work with. Or if they cannot play in time. Those are the two factors that are involved in performance, playing tones in time. It's a very simple process, but it's a very difficult one to achieve. So adequate preparation is the area that puts all those pieces together. All of those relate to outdoor performance. Competitive outdoor performance is different than playing halftime shows. The audience and the purpose of those two are different. The purpose of a halftime show is not the same as competing in a marching band contest. And you need to understand those two differences, I do believe, which will help you to understand what you should do in making advanced preparations. The type of show that you'd use for a halftime show that you might change from week to week or every other week or however many home games you have to perform for would be different than a competitive design show that's to demonstrate other qualities. The enthusiasm and the spirit and the excitement that you can produce at a football game is very important for all those who attend, somewhat of a relief and an entertainment factor. I don't believe that one should try to play Mahler at the halftime show, but then again, maybe Happy Days isn't the best thing to use for a competitive marching band contest. So there are differences of opinion, certainly, but when we conceive of that what we're trying to produce, we should think in terms of what are we trying to do? Why are we trying to perform? What is the purpose of the performance? Is it entertainment or is it competition? When it's competition, you need to take into consideration some details more so than you do for entertainment factors. The listening audience is important. I don't think that competitive performances should not be entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I think they should be extremely entertaining, but the pains that you take in program design are different for competitive reasons because of what you're doing. Outdoor acoustic principles. The base thing that you need to understand is there is no reflection. There is no reflection outdoors. So unless it comes off of the stadium wall that you play against and it hits you back in the face after you've played it 2 seconds before. In some instances that does cause a problem, but it doesn't help you as it does inside. When you're playing an arrangement that's inadequately prepared from an acoustical standpoint, indoor reflection will help you fill in some of the pieces that aren't there. When you're outside, those pieces have to be written in. All of you are probably familiar with the overtone series, and if you take a look at how the overtone series works, you can check the arrangements that are used to make sure that the fundamental is reinforced at least at the octave in many instances, and that you don't cluster the tones too close in the lower register so that they work not in cooperation with each other but against each other. The reinforcement of the fundamental as well as the fifth above that in the chord structure is extremely important for good, strong acoustical foundation. Without that foundation, you're not going to produce the results, which brings us into the next area, which I will get to in a bit, but I want to point it out at this point, is that even if the scoring is adequate or very good, and you run into a problem where you do not have it staged properly, so that you acoustically take out the lower foundation and you get the mid-ranges and the trebles projecting and not the bottom, you'll have a deterioration of sound. You will not be able to get the projection that you intended. Outdoors, the lower sounds do not project as easily as the upper sounds. Most of you found that out, probably the hard way. The lower brass sounds and the lower woodwind sounds do not project the same way as the upper ones do. The upper ones project farther and faster. So we have a problem in staging at times when that occurs. I'll show you some diagrams of some things that you might want to consider as things not to do or things to do in your staging and why you may have problems with them. With regard to the acoustical principles that provide you with that kind of thing that happens outdoors that you can say this is good or this is not as good. The thing that you can determine that with are the same principles you use in your band rooms. Does the band play in tune? Why would that be important? Does anybody have any idea? What happens when you don't play in tune? First of all, what is in tune? I'll just use, in tune is when all the vibrations work together. We'll call that in tune. Out of tune is when the vibrations don't work together. When you play A440 and somebody else plays A444 and somebody else plays A438, what happens as a phenomena in the air? Does anybody know? You have an idea. Let's think about a vibration. And think about that vibration as a wave that goes like this. If you have everybody producing those same kind of waves outdoors, with the amplitude being the same and so forth and so on, and I'm just going to draw this. This is like having it in the same spot. My artwork isn't great, but you probably can get the idea. When those waves are very similar, both in amplitude, which is the distance from the bottom to the top, and frequency, which is how fast they occur in time, then you get a phenomena which we call in tune. When they're in conflict, either in amplitude or like this, we have a problem. And that problem occurs because we have vibrations now that don't occur in time. They're out of sync. It's just like having a timing error. But it's even, the phenomena is even worse. from an acoustical standpoint or from an audio impression standpoint, because those sound waves are in conflict with one another and they actually stop. They don't project. So the more conflict you have as far as the sound waves are concerned, being out of tune, the less chance you have of projecting sound. The more in tune you play, the better are your chances of projection. So for those of you who are interested in putting out more sound, projecting that sound, take a lot of time. Use your tuners to make sure that your bands play in tune. Fundamental principle. If we're not in agreement of how far this pitch is away from the next pitch, we're in deep trouble from a projection standpoint and from a musicianship standpoint. That's one of the reasons why it's imperative to teach tuning. If for no other reason, if you don't have them play in tune, they're not going to project very well. So amplitude is the quantity of vibration that is out there, caused by wind instruments by the amount of air that you put into the instrument. So the quantity of air you put into the instrument produces the amplitude. The speed of the air in a wind instrument produces the vibration frequency. So you can relate to two different problems. If you want volume, the wind players have to increase the quantity of the air that they put into the instrument. And if you want pitch centering, you have to be aware and alert to the speed of the air. So don't get them confused. That's a real awkward setup if you do, because sometimes individual students think that if they play harder, they'll play higher, and that's not necessarily the case. The airspeed has to be faster. You don't have to blow harder. Blowing harder only produces a change, or blowing softer only produces a change in dynamics. It sometimes produces a change in pitch if all the other factors don't work right. But keep those two separate. When you're dealing with vibrations in the air, the more you know about them, the more you take time to listen to the sounds that are in the air and use the devices that are available. Tuners, strobo tuners, Korg tuners, both of them have a very important function. They are both different instruments. One uses a meter and the other uses that wheel. The wheel helps you in being able to determine certain upper harmonics if you watch it. You can even determine quality factors in individual performers by watching that wheel. The Korg, which uses just a needle, discriminates very fine tuning. And as a matter of fact, if you have problems with tuning, I'd suggest that you use a Peterson or a Kahn strobo tuner to get in there, because the Korg will, if you're that far out of pitch, it'll be real hard to get it even to demonstrate that there's something called pitch in that area. Korgs are real nice because they're portable, and you don't have to have a generator along with you out in the middle of the field or a very long cord. So your batteries work real good. I use mine all the time. I use it at every rehearsal whenever I'm working, and I have it going a lot. It's a very important determination from a pitch center reference. Those who don't use them sometimes say, well, I should be able to hear these things and make those determinations. I've done a lot of judging in the past, and let me tell you an experience that I have to go through in order to help me to be a better judge. After hearing 20, 30, or 40 performing groups that are at best marginal tuning, and sometimes at worst, I mean just frightening, and almost painful. In order to get back to the point where you can discriminate good quality and good pitch, you have to listen to quality recordings. I carry quality recordings along with me and listen to them in between when I'm on tour judging, so that I can get back to a point of reference. You as an instructor, I know, having taught for 16 years in public schools, it can get to be to the point where, you know, even 4, 8, 10, 15 vibrations away is getting to be real great. Yeah. And tone quality that sounds like somebody scratched their fingers on a chalkboard is getting to be more acceptable because you've heard it so many times. So tuners and other devices help us keep honest. It's hard to argue with an octave. An octave is just an octave. It can't be less than an octave and it can't be more than an octave. A fifth can only be so much. You can't argue with it. You can bend it, but it's no longer that pitch. And when that happens, like I demonstrated on the overhead, those waves do not cooperate. They fight. And they compete for their place in the air. And when they do that, when they compete for their place in the air, we all lose, because that sound goes here and goes and it just doesn't project. I hope that helps you to understand that it's real important to play in tune. Tuning is one of the most important factors for outdoor projection. The second factor for outdoor projection that's as important as tuning is playing in time. And it works on the same principle as playing in tune. If you don't play exactly in time, or however far away from in time you play, as far as your attacks are concerned, or in between the basic pulses, those rhythmic factors that are included in there, when that doesn't occur in time together, in sync, we have the same battle going on. Now we have two battles, fighting to get the pitch to the listening audience. So playing in time is essential. A technique that's used frequently to produce that is playing attacks only. Not only for the purpose of coordinating that impact, that sound, to occur in time, but to isolate those problems so you as an instructor can hear where those problems occur. If you are out on the drill field, for example, and play long tones, or tones that are, some people are playing whole notes, some are playing half notes, some are playing eighths and sixteenths and so forth, and they're at various different places all over the field, being able to zone in on the exact problem is very difficult. So you as an instructor can help yourself along by saying, okay, I'm not going to deal with all this at the same time. I'm only going to deal with part of it. So my rehearsal right now is going to deal with making sure the pitch is right, or making sure timing is right, instead of trying to deal with all the factors at the same time. It's like taking a shotgun and shooting all over the place when you're going duck hunting. Well, the ducks could be anywhere, right? But if you wait until you see the duck, or you get into a position where you can actually see it, you can take aim at it. Well, instruction is no different. If we try to instruct all the factors that are involved in musicianship and outdoor performance simultaneously, we'll be in deep trouble. We won't get anything done. It brings up at this point probably the most important thing as an outdoor performance that you need to deal with. There are certain critical points in a show design where the audio must be clearly heard at a big volume level. Those are those climactic moments in the show. We didn't talk about flow and structure of the show, which is just as important as the projection. But at those critical points, it's imperative that your visual design and your audio design is not in conflict. It can have a pretty picture, that's great, but if it doesn't help you produce that audio sound because of putting you in a position where you cannot produce that sound, it's no good. Okay, take it from a person who's had very frustrating experiences that way, trying to make it work. Acoustics, outdoor acoustics, is a wide open field. Not very many people deal with it. People get into the situation and say, oh, yuck, here we go. They sound so great in my band room, or they sound so great in the arc. But when they go out there and start playing and marching, then they sound like, if that's a mild way of describing it. Why do we have those problems? Well, we need to understand more what effect occurs and what effect occurs by placing people in different places on the field. Take your ensembles. Have them learn chorales, or have them learn articulative passages, 16 counts, 32 counts, and put the ensembles out in different places on the field. Take a tape recording, have somebody do a tape for you of what's going on, and you write evaluations, or you just check things out and make sure that you make commentaries on the tape while it's happening. What you've noticed about the sound, how did you perceive it? How does it affect what you thought was going to happen? Because Nobody can give you all the answers to your particular and peculiar problems. But what we can do is deal with the principles. And if you understand how to deal with the problems, you're all intelligent enough to learn. So just go after those things. Use those experimental times to dig in deeper, to get more information, to grasp new things, to experiment. Experimentation is the name of the game. Don't expect somebody to give you all the answers.